Good
You're good.
evening.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Lisa. And
Hey, Josh. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Dark Ozarks. And we are starting a special series here of how to basically, or how to look at the paranormal from a historical, cultural, and objective point of view.
absolutely. And this is first and foremost for our subscribers.
Yes.
So
Yes. We appreciate you all.
yes, we do.
So you get this first and foremost and exclusively. So
Yes.
tonight's topic is mimics and visual and auditory phenomena related to mimics.
Yes. So this is, and especially is something that you said, working or interacting with the paranormal in an objective way. That is something that I think many people struggle with because they get scared.
It's easy to, or because some people just they go in from one angle or another, one viewpoint, and view it through that lens regardless.
Yes. And our topic tonight is what are called mimics / auditory phenomena. From just the average person experiencing this, what is the phenomena of interacting with quote unquote a mimic?
A mimic is basically any activity or a presence entity that mimics a living person.
Yes.
And it can be in a visual sense or a auditory sense, and sometimes both.
Yes.
But basically, a good example would be that you see someone in the house that, say, lives there, and you see them walk through the kitchen, and you don't think about it, and then you realize that person is in another room, but they couldn't have gotten from here to there that quickly. And you ask them, were you in the kitchen? And they don't know what you're talking about. Things like that.
Yes.
A good example, here's a good example I was thinking of earlier when we were talking about this. A friend of mine who's an investigator in Texas, she related this story to me several years ago. She had a close friend that was dying of cancer, and several people would rotate staying in the home with him. So she was there for several days caring for him. She's on the first floor, and he's in a bedroom upstairs, and he's so weak he can't walk. She's woken up in the middle of the night just sensing something, and she looks up and it sees what appears to be her friend standing in her friend Kenny standing in the doorway, and she's startled because he hasn't walked in weeks, and then she's afraid he's going to fall, and so she gets up and starts towards him, and he turns and starts up the stairs, but it's very quick. She gets upstairs and realizes he's asleep in the bed.
Mm.
But she hadn't, but it's not a matter of was she dreaming or something, because she continued to see him after she was awake and walking towards the stairs and partway up the stairs before she lost sight of this.
Yes.
And I know other people have had the same experiences, even within family. And typically, these kind of situations, the mimic or doppelganger doesn't speak. Most of the tales that I have heard, when they see someone they know, they never speak. They just see them, and then they realize it's not the real person. And then, of course, there's the old lore, the Germanic lore, that is, if you see your own doppelganger, you're going to die.
Yes. So there's I think, digging into this, elements that can be fairly light in
Mm,
terms of explanation.
right.
Some can be uh, darker, for
Right.
to put it bluntly. Of course, leave it to the Germans to come up with all the good death omens. Uh, it's a lot of
And all the scary ghosts. Yes.
lots of reasons for that. Um, one situation that really brought it to my mind. I have a good friend who has shared that they were occasionally would hear the voice of a loved one
Hmm.
calling out to them, and then go check on their loved one or call them and be like, and obviously not, the person is not in the room with them or not in the house with them,
Right.
and it's as though they're being called and then checking and being like, oh my gosh, is that person okay?
Exactly. And to be honest, that happens in my house. That's happened in my house for a number of years. And all of my kids have had the experience of hearing my voice, calling them, um, and then they don't, they walk out in the hall or whatever. I'm not there. They come find me. What'd you want, Mom? And I had not called them. And I've had a number of conversations where they are so convinced they think I'm teasing them, and no, I didn't call you. I haven't, no. And so, yeah, we have something in the house that tends to has mimicked me and has mimicked another family member. We don't have any indication that, it's, anything to worry about. It's nothing that's a trickster or anything negative, but it's happened a number of times to various people that it's not a one-off. Oh, I must have heard that wrong.
Yes. So, and I think that's an important factor, because I think just like um to dispel, not to dispel the phenomena, but to separate the phenomena from just random patterns,
Right.
that our ears can hear random patterns as though they're not random, in the
Mhm.
same way that our eyes can see random patterns. For example, see faces in random patterns. We can hear familiarity in random sounds.
That's true. That's true. But when it's repeated, it does make you wonder. And when it
Yeah.
happens to multiple people, and to the point that they're really convinced that that they heard that particular voice over a period of, in this case, years.
Yes.
Um, Now, another form of mimicry that can happen is when you have something that mimics something they aren't. Say, um, will appear as a child when it's not a child spirit, things like that.
Hmm.
And in some of those situations, again, I think it's just someone playing a joke. And then there's situations where it does appear to be a little more nefarious, as far as a little more mean spirited. Um, and so, uh, but why? Who really knows? Other than sometimes I think it's to try to get acknowledgement and either deceive someone or just to appear innocent so that they don't scare you. And I think that's the option that sometimes people don't think about. That
Yes.
oh my gosh, it appears a child, so in our post Exorcist movie world, everyone seems to leap to if it's if it's mimicking, it must be evil or something. I don't necessarily think that all the time by any means, but I think kind of putting our best foot forward, when we're trying to make a good impression, and we try to pick up the right fork and make sure there's no lettuce in our teeth and things like that. I think sometimes things do try to appear more sweet and innocent than maybe they might come across otherwise.
Yes. And I think that perspective is is important. as we're dealing with things objectively, I do want to clarify something I said, that and I think this is a very important role that we as investigators and researchers play, that it's important to essentially debunk where it is appropriate to do so, but not it is not our intent to invalidate real phenomena.
Exactly.
That,
And oh, go ahead.
I was just just going to say, we've talked about, for example, looking at say a photo of an abandoned house, and then studying the windows and saying, oh my gosh, I see a face, when in reality it's reflected leaves. And I would encourage people to like stare at leaves from a distance and start picking out faces. Your brain will start putting eyes, nose, mouth into these varying shifting patterns. That kind of thing does happen. If there's a lot of ambient noise of varying kinds, our mind may start doing the same thing if there's a lot of ambient noise. However, that is separate from genuine mimic phenomena.
Yes, very, very much so. And I hate to say that, usually when people experience it, it's something that is pretty vivid, that they're not, it's not a question of, could it have been something else or someone else that I heard? No, that was her voice. That was his voice.
Yes.
And often it's, when mimicking happens, it is of someone that you are very close to, which I think makes sense, because if they're trying to get your attention, it would not make sense to mimic a stranger or, someone that you just, passed on the sidewalk kind of thing. And so appearing as someone that you're very close to, but in a context that doesn't make any sense, is also going to make you take a double take and pay attention to what's going on. And I think sometimes that is intent.
So in this particular case, we're first and foremost simply talking about using objective rationale first, and then awareness, and an awareness of our overall surroundings and senses second, in a common sense but essentially open-minded sort of way. Now, the situation that you described in Texas seems to me potentially to lean into what we kind of classify as a living ghost. The fact that it's not something else, it is the person, but essentially like a projection of the person, or if the person is in a between life and death threshold, that essentially their existent ghost may be somewhat untethered.
Exactly. Or some sort of thought form that he was projecting in that state, because he was heavily medicated at that point. He was on hospice. And so that would make sense. And at first she thought, oh my, when she realized it wasn't him, that, oh my, is something going on? And he was resting. He wasn't, in pain. He wasn't in distress. So it wasn't as if even sort of trying to send for her to come. And so that's my sense, is that probably either his ghost or thought form basically became untethered and was wandering the house.
And it reminds me a little bit, and this happens to many people. It has happened to me at a very young age, being very ill and having a memory of seeing my body.
That's true. It's almost like an out-of-body experience, and I guess in a sense it could have been that, and we just don't necessarily think about someone having an out of body experience and then someone being able to actually see them out of their body. But perhaps that can happen.
Yes. And then
Which
shifting
again
in,
would not necessarily be paranormal in the sense of, a haunting.
no. And I think again it kind of moves us back to that a positive point of centering, and the fact that these, if you're afraid of ghosts, you kind of have to be afraid of yourself too.
Well, yes, or at least, question yourself.
Yes. Because in theory, what a ghost is a disembodied person.
Mhm,
And that, is at some point, is like, I'll use myself as an example. At some point, that's going to be me too.
mhm.
And that's okay. I'm not afraid of my energy, my sentience. And so, there's a sense of normalcy. Now, as kind of our final point to like totally creep people out as we close, drawing some ties back to that Germanic lore and the continental European lore, doppelgangers are associated with death omens. So
Yes.
there is that. The other thing is that from a folkloric perspective, particularly European folkloric perspective, but not limited to, is that the stories of, for example, unwary travelers, etc., being lured into danger
Yes.
by familiar voices.
Mhm.
And that I can't help but bring that up in the subject of mimics.
That's true. I think that's very true. And in which case, there has to be something tapping into their own subconscious, that if they're traveling, that, that whatever's there has not been exposed to this other person or whatever.
Yes. So it's reading you.
Exactly. And that may be a good point to end this one at.
Yes, I think that's good. Of course, if you have specific questions about these types of topics, please feel free to message us. We're always excited to hear from folks, and we learn more together.
Yes, we do. And we appreciate you all. So until the next one, enjoy and enjoy the travels.
Absolutely. Thank you all, and thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, everyone.